Was Jesus married? This may seem a silly question for some of us, but it can be a great source of confusion for others. There are magazine articles, books, television shows, documentaries, and movies that entertain this theory or try to prove that Jesus was married. Skeptics and critics of the Bible go along with these falsehoods for the following reasons. 1. They are not familiar with what's in the Bible. 2. They are willfully trying to make others doubt God's word. By claiming Jesus was married, they make Christ less like the Son of God and more like an ordinary man. 3. They are desperate to escape the fact that God's word is true. Deep down, they know they are sinful and they will face God as their holy judge. The Bible does not give us any reason to believe Jesus was married, and it gives us a lot of reasons to believe he wasn't married. Let me repeat that. The Bible does not give us any reason to believe that Jesus was married, and it gives us lots of reasons to believe that he was not married. First, let's discuss the verses that might confuse a casual reader. Throughout the Bible, there are over 98 verses that speak of marriage. Most of these are an analogy, a picture of the relationship between God and his people, or the relationship between Jesus and the Christian church. These verses are not meant as a literal marriage between a man and a woman. For example, in John chapter 3, verses 28 through 30, John the Baptist was stepping aside so Jesus could begin his ministry. John compared himself to the best man at a wedding and compared Jesus to the groom. John didn't mean that Jesus was getting married. He meant the groom, in the Jewish culture, was the most important person at the event. John was explaining that Jesus was now the most important person. Anyone who attempts to use verses from the Old Testament or the New Testament to prove that Jesus was literally married to a woman is not paying attention to what the Bible is saying, or they are deliberately trying to twist and change God's word. Next, the Bible never mentions that Jesus had a wife. However, there is a wealth of information about Jesus' earthly family and friends. If Jesus had a wife, where was she during his ministry? Other women are mentioned in the New Testament by name, along with what they did for Jesus' ministry. If Jesus had a wife, where was she during the crucifixion? In John chapter 19, verses 25 through 27, Jesus is hanging on the cross, telling John to take care of his earthly mother, Mary. If Jesus had a wife, she should have been mentioned here. Where was she during the resurrection? She doesn't make any kind of appearance in the four Gospels, and she is not mentioned in the book of Acts, along with the disciples waiting in Jerusalem or at Pentecost. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 5, Paul is speaking of his right to have a Christian wife. He mentions Peter having a wife. If Jesus had a wife, this would have been another perfect time to bring it up, but Paul doesn't. Think about it. Jesus knew he was coming to earth to die on a cross. Why would he get married and possibly have kids if he knew he wouldn't finish being a husband and a father? The thought experiments and questions on this topic are deep and can go on for hours, so let me end with this. In Genesis chapters 1 and 2, God says a man and a woman who marry become one flesh. The Bible clearly teaches that because of Adam and Eve's disobedience, each of us are born into sin and need to be rescued. Jesus had to live a perfect, sinless life to be the sacrifice for our sin. Any claims that make Jesus an ordinary man are false. So if you ever meet someone who believes that Jesus was married, ask them to show you where she is mentioned. And if you see those magazines, books, and movies, you can say with confidence, Jesus was not married because he had to be the perfect sacrifice for my sin.